So, I want you to imagine for a second that you are like an invincible super soldier.
Okay.
You are clad in this massive armor that can literally withstand direct hits from tank rounds.
Right.
You carry a weapon that fires, rocket-propelled, armor-piercing explosives.
Sounds intense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you've been engineered for absolute tactical perfection, right? Your psychology is completely scrubbed of fear, and your body is literally incapable of fatigue.
Wow.
You are, for all intents and purposes, a god of war.
Yeah, a walking tank, basically.
And yet, and then this is the crazy part. You lose the war before firing a single shot.
Wait, really?
Yeah. You don't lose because the enemy outflanked you, or because their guns were bigger. You lose because the enemy didn't aim for your armor and they didn't aim for your supply lines.
Okay, so what did they aim for?
They aimed for your reality.
Man, that is a terrifying scenario right there,
Yeah.
because it fundamentally challenges how we even, think about conflict. I mean, the human mind naturally defaults to the tangible stuff, right? When we consider the most dangerous weapon in a, galaxy-spanning conflict, we always picture planet-cracking munitions.
Oh, absolutely. Huge bombs.
Right, or biological plagues, or fleets of dreadnoughts just eclipsing the sun. We're conditioned by our own history to measure a threat entirely in terms of kinetic force.
Yeah, material destruction. Like, how big is the explosion?
Exactly. But the sources we are unpacking today reveal something entirely different.
Which brings us to today's deep dive. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're looking at this massive stack of documents detailing the history, the psychology, and the military doctrine of a faction known as the Word Bearers.
Yes, the Ex-Legion.
Right, often referred to in these texts as the Architects of Heresy.
Such a powerful title.
It really is. And our mission today isn't just to, tally up the size of their fleets or list the battles they've won.
Because that misses the point entirely.
Exactly. If we only looked at their military statistics, we'd be missing the true horror of their existence.
Right, because what we're really examining here is the corruption of the soul through faith.
Yeah.
As we navigate these sources, it is so vital to approach this not as a simple military debriefing, but as a sociological and, frankly, a psychological case study.
A deep look into the human mind.
Yeah, we're looking at the mechanics of human belief and what happens when the profound, inherently human need to, venerate something greater than oneself, what happens when that is weaponized.
It's just wild to think about.
It is. We are looking at a weapon that doesn't just shatter cities. It literally shatters the architecture of existence.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to really wrap our heads around how the Word Bearers became these architects of heresy, we have to look at the blueprint of their devotion.
We have to start at the beginning.
Right. We have to go back to their origins, and the sources are, crystal clear on this.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot separate the identity of the Word Bearers from their creator.
Right, they're Primarch.
Exactly, a figure named Lorgar.
And we really need to define what a Primarch actually is in this context, because, the term carries immense weight in the lore.
It's not just a fancy rank.
No, not at all. A Primarch is not like a general who just rose through the ranks because he was good at tactics.
Yeah.
They are genetically engineered, functionally immortal demigods.
Wow.
Yeah, created by the Emperor of Mankind specifically to lead his armies. They are bespoke entities.
Custom built for war.
Exactly. But, and here's the catch, they were scattered across the galaxy as infants, right? Landing on a vastly different world.
Which is a huge variable.
Huge. It meant their innate, built-in genetic programming violently collided with intense environmental conditioning from wherever they grew up.
And Lorgar's castle, his pod, landed on a planet called Colchis.
Right.
And the text described Colchis in incredibly vivid terms. It's this harsh, unforgiving desert world.
Very brutal environment.
Yeah. But more importantly than the sand and the heat, it is a deeply theocratic world.
Right.
It was ruled by this deeply entrenched, highly dogmatic religious caste called the Covenant.
And that shapes everything.
Totally. The entire society was structured around absolute faith, daily rituals, and unquestioning obedience to spiritual authority.
So you take a genetically engineered demigod, right? Someone who is inherently designed down to his DNA to lead and conquer.
Yeah.
And you drop him onto a planet where power is entirely measured by religious devotion. The outcome is almost inevitable.
It's a recipe for exactly what happened.
Right. Lorgar didn't just survive on Colchis. He completely absorbed its fundamental operating system.
He drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak.
Well, he became the one serving it. He conquered the planet, not merely through like standard military might, but through a bloody religious schism.
Wow.
Yeah, he became its high priest, the supreme spiritual leader.
And the text really highlights a foundational trait that defines Lorgar. And by extension, the entire S7 Legion, whose genetics are, derived from him.
Because they share his DNA.
Exactly. It wasn't a desire for martial supremacy or tactical brilliance.
No.
Their defining trait was a relentless, almost biological search for a god to worship.
And what's fascinating here is how striking a deviation this is from, well, this standard military archetype, right?
How so?
Think about a conventional military force, even an army of super soldiers. It's built on a foundation of operational efficiency, right? A clear chain of command defines strategic objectives.
Right. Taking that hill, securing those resources.
Exactly. The XF Legion, however, was built on a theological imperative. They viewed their military conquests not as campaigns, but as literal crusades.
And initially, that massive theological imperative, that drive, was directed squarely at the Emperor himself.
Yes, when they were finally reunited.
Right. When the Emperor finally arrived on Colchis to reunite with his lost son, Lorgar didn't just see a father or a sovereign or a king.
He saw the divine.
Exactly. He saw the god he had literally been waiting for his entire life.
And the phrasing in the source text, a relentless search for a god to worship, it's so critical because it implies a void.
An emptiness.
Yes, an emptiness that absolutely must be filled. It's an active, desperate seeking.
Yeah.
It means their faith wasn't just a byproduct of their culture, it was the engine of their entire existence.
I was trying to wrap my head around this psychology, right? Because it's so foreign to how we normally think.
It is.
And I think the best way to understand Lorgar and the early word bearers is to view them as a vessel.
Oh, I like that.
Like, imagine a person who possesses a truly infinite capacity for love, loyalty, and devotion. Just a colossal, bottomless well of reverence.
Right.
But they have no one to pour it into. They are this massive empty cup just waiting for water.
That vessel analogy really captures the inherent vulnerability of their design, I think.
Vulnerability.
Yeah, because a vessel is defined entirely by what it contains, right?
Sure.
If you are the entity that finally accepts that devotion, you gain a military force that will march into the heart of a star for you. They will do anything.
Absolute loyalty.
Exactly. But it also makes the Legion fundamentally unstable.
Wait, why unstable? I mean, if they're absolutely devoted, wouldn't that make them the most reliable soldiers in the galaxy?
In a purely ideal scenario, perhaps. But look at the psychology of a standard, logically driven military force.
Okay.
If a conventional tactic fails, the military adapts. It retreats, it recalibrates, it changes its strategy.
Right, they try a flanking maneuver or something.
Yeah. It's inherently flexible because its goal is material victory, surviving to win the war.
Makes sense.
But a military force built on the absolute need for a deity's validation, that is rigid. Their entire existence, their self-worth, and their operational cohesion hinge entirely on that deity accepting their worship.
Oh, I see. Because if that deity ever rejects them.
The structural integrity of their entire legion collapses.
Wow.
Their absolute, unyielding faith was a single point of failure. If you outsource your entire purpose for existing to an external figure, you are handing over the keys to your reality.
Which perfectly sets up the singular event that completely inverted the word bearer's existence.
The turning point.
Yeah. The sources outline a massive, catastrophic catalyst, a moment where this enormous vessel of devotion was just violently shattered.
Yes.
The word bearers were subjected to a profound humiliation at the hands of the emperor.
And to really grasp the gravity of this, we have to understand the emperor's ideological stance at the time.
Right, because he wasn't just a regular king.
No, the emperor was actively spreading something called the imperial truth.
Imperial truth.
Exactly. This was a doctrine of militant atheism, rationality, and science.
Science and logic above all else.
Yes. He was actively trying to eradicate religion from the galaxy, believing it to be the root of humanity's historical downfall.
And here is Lorgar, right?
Yeah.
Conquering worlds in the emperor's name.
Yeah.
But doing so by writing scripture, building massive cathedrals, and forcing entire planetary populations to worship the emperor as a living god.
Which is the exact opposite of what the emperor wants.
He's literally doing the exact thing the emperor is actively trying to outlaw.
The clash was just Completely inevitable. It wasn't merely a disagreement over military pacing, like you're conquering too slowly.
Right.
It was a fundamental existential incompatibility of worldviews.
So the text describes this specific event on a planet called Kerr, in a city that Lorgar built called Monarchia.
Yes, monarchy.
Lorgar literally called it the perfect city, right?
Yeah.
An entire metropolis dedicated solely to the worship of the emperor.
And the emperor's response to this magnificent tribute.
He sends another legion, the Ultramarines, to forcefully evacuate the city, and then he obliterates it from orbit, just burns it to ash.
The sensory details of this event in the lore are absolutely staggering.
It's tense.
The entire Essex Legion, 100,000 super soldiers, were ordered to physically gather in the smoking ashes of their greatest achievement.
Just standing in the ruins of their perfect city.
Right, and then the Emperor uses his immense psychic power to literally force the entire Legion to kneel in the dust. And he delivers a brutal rebuke. He tells Lorgar to his face he is not a god, and that Lorgar's worship is a total failure.
But here is where I actually have to stop and push back on the psychology of this a little bit.
Oh, okay. What's your alternative theory?
Well, think about strict religious structures throughout human history, right? Or even deeply authoritarian families.
Sure.
If the ultimate authority figure, the very god they wanted to worship, tells you that you're doing something wrong, a truly devout follower usually internalizes that.
They blame themselves.
Exactly. They say, I am flawed, I must do better, I will follow your new rules. So shouldn't a rebuke, even a really harsh one, just correct their behavior? Why did this specific event shatter their faith entirely, instead of just making them double down and trying to please him the right way?
That is an excellent point, and it raises a really important question about the distinction between correction and humiliation.
So, what's the difference here?
Well, the source text does not merely say they were corrected or reprimanded. It explicitly states they were humiliated.
Humiliated.
Yes. We must analyze the mechanics of humiliation. A correction targets an action, right? Like, you are conquering planets too slowly, or stop building temples, start building factories.
Right. It's about the task.
Exactly. Humiliation, however, targets the identity. It destroys dignity.
Oh, I see.
The emperor didn't just reject their methods. By forcing them into the ashes of their own city, he psychically forced them to their knees, stripping away their autonomy completely.
And he did it in front of the Ultramarines.
Yes, he rejected their core truth in front of a rival legion. That is deeply shameful.
So it wasn't a lesson. It was a degradation.
Precisely. He looked at that massive vessel of devotion they were offering him, that cup of love and loyalty. He slapped it out of their hands onto the ground, and then he shamed them for daring to offer it in the first place.
Man.
When you destroy someone's foundational belief system in such a public, degrading manner, you do not leave them with a clean slate to just try again.
You break them.
You create a massive ideological vacuum.
And the psychology of fanaticism dictates that devotion of that magnitude doesn't just evaporate into thin air, right?
Not at all.
You can't just, like, flip a switch and turn off 100,000 super soldiers who are biologically and culturally hardwired for worship.
The energy remains, but it sours.
It curdles.
It curdles into absolute vindictiveness. When an identity built entirely on love and worship is publicly shattered, the resulting trauma transforms that massive capacity for devotion into an equally massive capacity for hatred.
Which really highlights a thematic takeaway from the sources that I found incredibly chilling.
What's that?
A vendetta born from, like, a political dispute or a disagreement over resources that's manageable.
Sure, you can negotiate that.
You draw new borders, you sign treaties.
Yeah.
But a vendetta born from a shattered identity, from a broken heart on a literal galactic scale.
That is existential.
It really is.
There is no treaty that can mend a humiliated soul. The only recourse in the mind of the fanatic is the complete ontological destruction of the entity that caused the humiliation.
They don't just want to beat the emperor, they want to erase him.
Exactly.
So we have an entire legion sitting with this massive ideological vacuum. Their god has rejected them, shamed them, and destroyed their perfect city.
But they still have that fundamental need to worship.
Right. And nature, and especially religious zealotry, completely abhors a vacuum.
It always gets filled.
Always. And into that vacuum steps the true horror of this narrative.
Because the imperial truth was proven false to them, or at least the emperor proved himself unworthy of their faith. That intense, burning devotion had to find a new pantheon to venerate.
Which brings us to the architecture of their heresy.
Yes, segment 3.
The sources reveal that Lorgar and his legion They twisted their worship away from the emperor, and they pointed it toward the beings that reside in the warp, known as the Chaos Gods.
The text often refers to this as a dark pantheon,
Right.
and it is so vital to understand what they are actually worshiping here.
Yeah, explain the warp for a second.
The warp is a parallel dimension of psychic energy, formed over millennia by the collective emotions and thoughts of all sentient life in the galaxy.
Like a mirror dimension of feelings.
Exactly. But over eons, the most extreme emotions, rage, despair, blind ambition, excess, they coalesced into sentient, malevolent entities.
Chaos Gods.
These are the Chaos Gods. They are the literal manifestations of the worst parts of the galactic psyche.
And here's where it gets really interesting to me. Lorgar's realization wasn't just like, oh, I'll worship this new god instead.
Right.
The word-bearers practiced something called chaos undivided.
Which is a highly complex, almost paradoxical theological stance to take.
Yeah, because usually a cult will pick one of these entities, right? They worship the god of rage, so they become super angry,
Right.
or the god of decay, and they embody sickness.
They specialize, essentially.
Right. But the word-bearers look at the entirety of this dark pantheon, four distinct gods who, by the way, actively hate each other and are constantly at war, and they worship all of it equally.
They view chaos not as individual deities to bargain with, but as the fundamental truth of the universe.
The underlying reality.
Yes. To worship only one aspect of it would be to deny the whole truth.
Wow.
So their entire culture, their society, and their military doctrine underwent a total systemic replacement.
I was trying to find an analogy for this shift.
Okay.
And originally I thought about flipping the polarity of a magnet.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's not quite right, because flipping a magnet just makes it repel. It doesn't change the nature of the attraction itself.
That's true.
A better way to look at this is comparing the word-bearers to a massive, incredibly powerful computer network.
Oh, I like where this is going. How so?
Well, they didn't change the hardware, right? The physical strength of the Legion, their genetic enhancements, their unyielding discipline, that all remain completely intact.
The machines are still top of the line.
Exactly. What they did was uninstall the Imperial operating system, and in its place, they downloaded a highly localized, self-replicating virus.
A dark OS.
Yes. The machine is still running at maximum efficiency, but its output is now purely malicious.
That is a fantastic way to frame it. The hardware remains, but the software dictates a new, terrifying output.
Right.
And I draw your attention to the specific phrase the source uses to describe them here. The architects of heresy.
Yeah, architects, that's a very deliberate word choice.
It implies a deep intentional level of planning.
Right, an architect doesn't do things by accident.
Exactly. They didn't merely stumble into chaos. They didn't suffer a momentary lapse in judgment or, get tricked into a bad pact.
They sought it out.
Yes. Lorgar went on a pilgrimage directly into the warp itself. They actively pursued this dark truth.
Man.
And because the word-bearers intimately understand the mechanics of faith, because, remember, they spent decades on Colchis learning exactly how worship is constructed, codified, and maintained.
Right, they are the experts on religion.
So they knew exactly how to architect its exact opposite.
That is so dark. They already mapped the plumbing of human belief, right? So they knew exactly how to pump poison through those exact same pipes.
That's beautifully put. They took their profound systemic understanding of devotion and they reverse engineered it into a doctrine of damnation.
It's terrifying.
The source explicitly calls them missionaries of damnation. They aren't just sitting back, they are actively spreading the word of the Chaos Gods to every single corner of the galaxy.
I want to share the good news of the Dark Pantheon, basically.
Exactly. And that elevates them from mere traitors who just want to overthrow a government.
Right, a traitor just wants a new king.
An architect, however, designs blueprints that can be replicated by others.
Oh, right. Because Lorgar actually authored the Book of Lorgar.
Yeah.
It's this massive tome of dark scripture. They literally designed the ideological blueprint for heresy that would eventually corrupt, half of the Emperor's Legion?
Yes, they laid the foundation for the entire galactic civil war.
Unbelievable.
So we must consider the operational reality of this, right? If we visualize an army of crazed, dark god-worshipping zealots, standard logic suggests a very specific image.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you tell someone, hey, here comes an army of chaos-worshipping fanatics, you picture a disorganized, screaming mob.
Exactly.
You expect this bloody horde with zero discipline, prone to chaotic infighting, just sort of throwing themselves at the walls like zombies.
You expect standard entropy, a complete breakdown of command and control.
Yeah, because they worship chaos.
Right. But the text reveals something profoundly counterintuitive about how the word bearers operate practically on the ground.
Not a mob at all.
No. Unlike almost every other traitor legion, which eventually devolved into these fractured warbands driven by their specific obsessions,
Right.
the word bearers remain a unified military force.
Which is wild.
The sources explicitly note this cohesion. They are loosely organized by standard imperial metrics, certainly, but they are absolutely unified in purpose.
That unity totally defies the very nature of chaos.
It does. It shows the strength of their fanatical discipline.
Let's look at their structure, actually, because we need to define some imperial military terms first to understand just how weird this is.
Good idea.
So, a standard Space Marine chapter, the Loyalists, is rigidly defined. It's usually about 1,000 super soldiers, broken into 10 companies of exactly 100 men each.
Very clean.
Very. It's a highly codified, logical structure designed for maximum tactical flexibility and a super clear chain of command.
It is the absolute pinnacle of military logistics.
Right. But the word bearers, they
Yeah.
throw that entire manual straight out the window.
Completely.
They're broken down into formations called hosts.
Hosts. Yeah.
And these hosts are led by figures known as Dark Apostles.
Notice the shift in terminology there.
Yeah, it's very deliberate.
The standard military titles, captain, commander, general, they are completely superseded by religious designations.
An apostle.
Right. An apostle is a messenger, a spiritual leader. It means the chain of command is entirely theological, not tactical.
And the size of these hosts is wildly variable. It's not like the clean hundreds of a chapter.
No, not at all.
The text says the smallest host might be the size of a standard company, so like 100 Marines. But the largest can vastly exceed the manpower of an entire chapter, swelling to thousands of warriors under one apostle.
And this kind of massive fluctuation in military strength presents a staggering logistical nightmare for conventional tacticians to deal with.
Because you never know what you're facing.
Exactly.
And it gets even crazier. The organizational structure of a host on the battlefield changes purely on the whim of the Dark Apostle.
That absolute whim.
Like, if the Apostle interprets a vision or, reads the entrails of a sacrifice before dawn, he might completely reorganize his forces right before an engagement.
Just scrap the whole battle plan.
Yeah. The source text explicitly states this often results in, and I quote, seemingly unwieldy or inflexible formations,
And yet, the crucial detail follows immediately after that quote.
which the word bearers accept without question.
Okay, have to pause here.
Because this makes absolutely zero sense from a military standpoint.
How so?
If their formation is literally described by outside observers as unwieldy and inflexible, and it's entirely based on the random whim of a priest having a hallucination,
Yes.
how are they an actual threat? Doesn't basic military doctrine dictate that a well-oiled, highly logical army should easily outmaneuver and destroy an unwieldy, inflexible formation?
I mean, if the conflict were purely material, your logic would be absolutely sound.
Right, because artillery doesn't care about your visions.
Exactly. A rigid, slow-moving formation is easily flanked and annihilated by focused artillery fire. But the text proves that within the ranks of the word-bearers, standard military logic is completely superseded by unquestioning fanaticism.
I just don't see how fanaticism stops an artillery shell.
Well, it doesn't stop the shell,
Yeah.
but it fundamentally alters the psychology of the army taking the fire.
Okay, explain that.
Let us construct a hypothetical battlefield scenario.
Okay.
Imagine a conventional army defending a trench line. They are held together by rigid doctrine and logic.
Standard soldiers.
Right. If their supply lines are cut, if the enemy outflanks them, if the casualty rate suddenly exceeds a calculated acceptable percentage, that army will break.
Yeah, they'll retreat.
The soldiers will do the mental math. They'll realize the tactical situation is untenable, and they will retreat to preserve their lives and reform.
Right. Survival instinct kicks in when the logic of victory fails.
Exactly. But the word bearers do not do that math. To a word bearer, the Dark Apostle's command is not a tactical suggestion. It is literal divine gospel.
So it's a bad order.
If the apostle orders 1,000 warriors to form a massive, completely slow-moving phalanx and march directly into an entrenched heavy artillery position,
Hmm.
the soldiers do not perceive a flaw in strategy.
They perceive a holy mandate.
Yes, an army held together by rigid military doctrine breaks when the doctrine is proven flawed on the field.
Right.
But an army held together by absolute, unquestioning faith in a leader's whim, they will march straight into a meat grinder with a hymn on their lips.
Wow. They view an unwieldy formation as a test of faith.
Exactly. They will hold a completely indefensible position, not because it provides a good firing angle, but because the ground was declared sacred by their apostle that morning.
So their unity isn't tactical at all.
No.
It's purely theological.
Which is exactly what makes them terrifyingly unpredictable. You cannot demoralize an enemy that views a crushing tactical disadvantage as a divine opportunity for martyrdom.
That's a scary thought.
Standard military academies, they teach officers how to break an enemy's logistical spine or how to break their morale.
Yeah.
Those lessons are entirely obsolete when facing the word bearers.
Because they don't care about logistics or standard morale.
They only care about faith.
So let's take this theological unity and sort of zoom in on the actual mechanics of their warfare.
The boots on the ground.
Right. What does a battlefield look like when the soldiers are, as the text calls them, missionaries of damnation?
Well, it ceases to resemble a standard theater of war.
What does it become?
It becomes a macro-scale sacrificial altar. The sources detail their combat doctrine extensively, and it is a direct, violent manifestation of this twisted philosophy.
Because they don't just rely on bolters and chainswords.
No, not at all. They rely heavily on overwhelming the enemy with demonic allies.
And we must explore the mechanics of this demonic summoning, because it's not just like magic in the traditional fantasy sense.
Correct. It is not someone waving a wand.
Well,
It is the violent application of the warp into real space.
the text suggests they use ritual slaughter, mass desecration, and widespread suffering to literally thin the veil between the physical universe and the warp.
Yes.
They use the terror and the blood of the battlefield itself as a catalyst to tear holes in reality.
Allowing literal nightmares to spill out and fight alongside them.
Notice the synergy between their methods there.
It's devastating. You have the metaphysical horror of demonic entities combined with the deeply grounded physical terror of heavily armored super soldiers marching forward with relentless zealotry.
Right.
It is a two-pronged assault on the human psyche.
Right. The text makes a really profound distinction about their motives, too.
Yes.
Like, if you are a standard imperial planetary governor,
Right.
you understand why a normal invading force is attacking you.
Sure. They want your factories.
Right. They want your Prometheum reserves. They want your agricultural output. Or maybe they just want you to bend the knee and pay taxes to a new regime.
Those are all goals of material conquest. Tangible rewards.
But the word bearers aren't fighting for conquest.
No.
They don't care about your infrastructure. Their ultimate goal, according to the sources, is to shatter every icon of the emperor.
They are fundamentally iconoclastic.
Yeah.
They want to violently tear down the symbols of the imperial truth and replace them with monuments to the dark pantheon.
It's all about the symbols.
The text defines them as the embodiment of the Imperium's greatest fear, explicitly calling it the ultimate horror.
The ultimate horror.
Yes.
Yeah.
They represent the corruption of the soul through faith itself.
Let's bring this back down to the human level for a second, just to really picture it.
Yeah.
Put yourself in the mud of a trench line. You are just a standard Imperial guardsman.
A regular human.
Right. You've been trained to shoot center mass, to hold the line, to trust your commanding officer.
You know the drill.
And then the fog rolls in. The Voxcasters, your radios, they stop transmitting tactical data, and they start blaring these corrupted hymns that literally make your ears bleed.
The psychological barrage precedes the physical assault.
Exactly. And then you see them. Massive warriors in deep crimson armor, covered in parchments of dark scripture, literally pinned to their armor plates.
A terrifying sight.
They aren't taking cover. They are marching in perfect, terrifying synchronization, chanting in a language that makes your brain physically ache.
And it gets worse.
Yeah, because crawling out of the shadows behind them, forming out of the actual blood of your fallen squad mates, are entities that defy physical laws.
Demons.
Entities made of teeth and smoke and just pure malice.
The situation you are describing perfectly illuminates the core thesis of these source documents.
Which is...
We are distinguishing between material warfare and ideological warfare.
Okay, unpack that.
In material warfare, you measure victory and miles gained, resources captured, and enemies neutralized, right?
Like we said earlier, tangible stuff.
But ideological warfare operates on a completely different axis entirely.
Where does it happen?
It happens entirely within the mind and the spirit of the combatants.
Yeah.
The source text leaves us with a grim underlying reality here. The most dangerous weapon is the one that breaks the spirit long before it breaks the body.
Because the word bearers are engaging in pure psychological terror designed to induce an existential collapse in the enemy.
Exactly. They don't just want to kill that guardsman in the trench.
Right.
They want to prove to him in the agonizing moments right before his death that his entire life was a lie.
That the emperor is a corpse, and that the universe is actually ruled by laughing, malevolent gods.
They want the enemy's spirit to snap. Because when a soldier is faced with an enemy that completely ignores tactical logic, feels zero pain, screams praises as they are cut down, and fights alongside literal manifestations of nightmare.
Yeah, your training doesn't cover that.
The soldier's physical armor is utterly useless. The will to fight just evaporates.
The fight is over before the bullet hits.
The word bearers win the battle of the soul, effectively neutralizing the enemy's capacity to even wage material war.
It is the ultimate weaponization of despair.
It truly is.
They are actively trying to inflict the exact same ontological destruction on the galaxy that they themselves suffered at the hands of the Emperor.
It circles back perfectly to the ruins of Monarchia, doesn't it?
It really does.
They were humiliated, their core truth was destroyed, and now they are projecting their own profound trauma outward on a cosmic scale.
They are enforcing their own shattered reality onto everyone else.
Exactly. If we must suffer the truth, so must you.
Man. So as we step back from the abyss a bit here, let's trace this incredible, really dark journey we've just unpacked today.
It's been quite a path.
We started on the burning sands of Colchis, right? Examining Lorgar and a legion that was hardwired with an absolute desperate need to find a god.
The vessel, possessing a staggering capacity for devotion, just waiting to be filled.
Right. And we saw them offer that boundless love to the Emperor, only to suffer a crushing, identity-shattering humiliation in the literal ashes of their perfect city.
And we analyzed how that immense capacity for faith didn't disappear, but instead soured into a galaxy-spanning vendetta.
We watched them pivot to the warp, embracing the incredibly paradoxical theology of chaos undivided.
Becoming the very architects of the heresy that would eventually burn the entire galaxy.
Right. We looked at the logistical nightmare of their hosts, driven not by military doctrine, but by the capricious, unconscionable whims of the Dark Apostles.
And finally, we saw how they deployed demonic summoning and just unshakable zealotry to wage a war of spiritual annihilation, seeking to corrupt the very soul of humanity itself.
It really stands as a comprehensive anatomy of how a noble instinct, the deeply ingrained human desire to believe in something greater than oneself.
Yeah.
How that can be completely hijacked, inverted, and weaponized into pure, unadulterated evil.
It's tragic and terrifying all at once. Which brings us to the end of this deep dive, but as always, we want to leave you with a final, lingering question to mull over as you step back into your own reality today.
Yes. And based on the mechanics of ideological warfare we have discussed today, consider this.
Okay, hit us.
If a belief system is so potent that it can literally shatter reality and corrupt the soul, what happens when two equally unshakable, diametrically opposed beliefs collide?
Oh, wow. So like if the fanaticism of the word bearers meets the absolute dogmatic faith of the modern Imperium.
Precisely. Can ideological purity ever truly be defeated by physical force?
That's a great question.
If you strike down a fanatic with a bolt gun or an artillery shell, do you actually defeat their idea?
Right, because the idea doesn't die with the body. Or does striking them down only validate their persecution complex, cementing their martyrdom, and actually making the surviving believers even stronger?
It's a haunting paradox.
It is.
Does fighting an ideological war with physical weapons just feed the fire? Do you become the very monster you are trying to destroy just to survive?
It is the ultimate dilemma of fighting a war against faith.
That is definitely something to keep you up at night.
Indeed.
Well, we want to thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the X7th Legion. Keep questioning the nature of the information you consume, and keep interrogating the structures of belief, both yours and those around you.
Very important.
Because as we've learned today, the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy isn't something you can hold in your hands. It's the belief that takes hold of your mind. Catch you next time.